Hello and welcome to our English News edition. The major stories for tonight are: the head of state, His Excellency Ismail Mergeli, participates in the 34th Summit of the African Union. And on the international news, United Arab Emirates announces posing offensive on Yemen's Hodeidah. Thank you for joining us in our newsroom. The 34th Summit of the African Union opened today in Nouakchott, the capital of Mauritania. A summit focused on strengthening economic integration, the EU's budgetary autonomy, good governance, the fight against poverty and corruption. This summit is held while the African continent is facing a massive migration of its youth who seeks to reach Europe in search of a better life at the very moment when we also witness a withdrawal of identity to a rise of xenophobia and racism in Europe. This is illustrated by the coming to power of far-right parties in Central Europe, in Italy in particular. Even it is not on the official agenda of the summit, this issue of illegal immigration to Europe will be urgent, especially as European leaders meet in Brussels at the same time to take decisive measures and put in place detention and sorting centers for the quick removal of refugees and asylum seekers. Like every summit, African leaders will look at the crises that are shaking the African continent, particularly the crisis in South Sudan, Libya, the elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the reinforcement of the G7 forces in Mali to fight the jihadist movement. The participation of President Gelle in this 34th African Union Summit was also marked by the important address he gave at the forum of this event. Among other things, the Djiboutian head of state encouraged the Pan-African organization to redouble its efforts to increase its autonomy and independence. We cannot talk about the sovereignty of the African Union by seeking the help of our partners to pay for the very functioning of our organization on the one hand, and want to stand out from their influence by talking about the African position in international negotiation on the other hand, he said. It should also be noted that President Ismail Mergeli devoted another point of his intervention to the need of the African Union to reform and intensify its efforts toward the transformation into an effective organization able to respond to the challenges imposed by war in perpetual change. The status of the reform is very promising, and the tremendous work done in 2 years show us, he said, if need be, that we are on the right track, and above all, the success of our efforts is strongly linked to our level of cooperation, dialogue, and cohesion, said the President of the Republic. A signing ceremony was held today at the Ministry of Equipment and Transport under the supervision of the Minister of Equipment and Transport, Mr. Mohamed Abubakar Musa. This is the granting of a second ferry boat to the Republic of Djibouti. The ferry will serve for shipping between the capital and the northern region of the Jura. The signing ceremony took place in the presence of the Secretary General of the Ministry of Transport and Equipment, Mr. Said Nouh, the Director of Maritime Affairs, Mr. Ali Mirah Shihim Daoud, the Director of Bilateral Relations of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Yassine Douali, Director of the Chica and the Japanese delegation. The Minister thanked on behalf of the government of Djibouti, in particular, the infrastructure findings of his ministry, which remains the economic heart of the country. The future ferry will have a capacity of 250 passengers and will be designed to navigate all seasons. A strong Djiboutian delegation led by the Minister of Defense, Mr. Ali Hassan Badon, accompanied by the Minister of Communication, Abdi Yusuf Suge, is in Somalia since last night to participate in the Somali National Day of July the 1st. Upon arrival, the delegation was welcomed by the Somali Minister Hassan Ali Khairi. Cooperation between the two countries and the existing fraternal relations between the two countries were discussed during the meeting. In addition to the members of the government, the Djiboutian delegation included Djibouti's ambassador to Somalia, Adan Hassan, and General Subatle, Chief of Defense Staff. After the interview, the Djiboutian delegation also took part in a meeting between the Somali Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khairi and the Djiboutian artisans of the Harpy Group of the Djibouti National Army, who participated in during the festivities of the 1st of July National Fest. The National Office for the Relief of Refugees and Displaced Persons and United Nations Refugee Agency organized the volunteer repatriation of 9 families of 28 Somali refugees residing in Ali. These Somali refugees who lived in Djibouti for 28 years were repatriated to the Somali capital Mogadishu via a regular commercial plane from Turkish Airlines. The voluntary return comes after the visit of the Somali Prime Minister Hassan Ali Khairi to Ali Adde, where he announced during the visit that his country is preparing for security and stability and moving toward development. The 9 families composed of 28 persons benefited from material and other assistance such as new clothes. The Ministry of Women and the Family, in collaboration with the NGO LEA, organized a ceremony for the empowerment of 30 women and girls from different parts of Djibouti City last week at the Social Action Center for the Empowerment of Women, Kassaf. The ceremony was chaired by Mrs. Fosia Ali, Director of the Family. These materials are composed of food products that can be used by beneficiaries to open their own small shop. The initiative is part of the government roadmap that places women's empowerment at the heart of the Ministry's priority actions. As for the beneficiaries, they have not failed to thank the Ministry of Women for all actions undertaken for the development and empowerment of women. The Department of Orthopedic and Rehabilitation Equipment at Sheikh Hospital in Balbala receives about 20 patients every day since its opening in March 2016. Indeed, a dozen senior technicians specializing in orthopedics bring their expertise and help for people with disabilities daily to offer them the opportunity to walk again. Recognized as the national and regional reference center in this area, the Orthopedic and Rehabilitation Equipment Center has granted nearly 1,000 prothets or hitch for people with disabilities or with some difficulty to move normally. This orthopedic center has all the equipment and facilities of German technology that are required for all stages of manufacturing that are individually designed and developed to treat the patients, and these patients also receive psychological support and personalized follow-up throughout the rehabilitation process to help them achieve almost perfect mobility. In the context of vector control against flies and mosquitoes, the National Institute of Public Health of Djibouti has just launched a vast spraying operation in the capital. The objective of this operation is to prevent outbreaks of malaria fever by eliminating mosquito breeding sites and the proliferation of flies and other insects that may become vectors in the transmission of diseases. The Sanitation Department recommends that the population cover all containers during this spraying operation in their neighborhoods and recommends the elimination of puddles of stagnant water that are mosquitoes breeding sites. The National Water and Sanitation of Djibouti, ONEAT, and the Gendarmerie proceeded this morning to the arrest of many people who did not respect the instructions of non-discharge of wastewater on the roads and public tracks. Rulings for the payment of fines have also been filed with some conservators and homeowners. Asphalt roads are degrading rapidly because of these continual spills of water on the roadways. The Djiboutian Road Agency is concerned and acts in concert with the ONEAT, and the agency is constantly being called upon to restore the roads in order to stop the potholes. It is in the context of improving urban living conditions and to facilitate the circulations that these measures are taken. The operation that began this morning in the District 6 Zayla Road will continue in all areas of the capital, and these people arrested will be forced to pay 5,000 franc fine to the treasury for their irresponsibility. In case of refusal to pay the fine, they may be sued in court, where the fine will be more consistent and penalties of imprisonment of 15 days pronounced. The Division General of the Army of the Kingdom of Morocco, General Abdeslam Kedele, on a mission of work in Djibouti, went to the Inter-Army Military School of the region of Arta. He was greeted by the head of the Corps of the AMIA, Major Colonel Muhammad Ali Obsi, and his close collaborators have also been present by the Prefect of the region of Arta, Mr. Abdullahi Diraruki. To this fact, the General of the Division has visited the different places of this school to know the rooms of the courses, to equip the last materials and technologies, and the various places exempt by the military academic training. Subsequently, the head of the AMIA school offered the Moroccan military delegation a meal of honor to which they mainly discussed the bilateral relations between the two armies. The General of the Army of the Kingdom of Morocco suggested his commitment to reinforce the supports in the relations between the military school of Arta and the great schools of the Kingdom of Morocco. A training course was held at the National Institute for Staff Training this morning for the various staff of the Ministry of Public Administration in Project Management in the General Program for 5 days. The event was headed by the Executive Secretary for Administrative Reform at the Ministry of Labour, Mr. Muhammad Awali, Director of Human Resources in the Ministry of Budget, Mr. Muhammad Ahmed, and the Financial Director of the Ministry of Labour and other officials. The celebration of Djibouti for the first year's Independence Day continued. The inhabitants of Nasib City celebrated the National Independence Day. On this occasion, the officials in the neighborhood organized an event to present the traditional dances and some performances. A large number of residents of the neighborhood and the people of Belbela took part. The participants also gave a series of interventions that praised the achievements of the capital of Djibouti. The Djiboutian diaspora residing in Diridawa celebrated the 41st anniversary of the independence of the Republic of Djibouti. An eventful evening was held where several activities marked the day. The festivities continued with folkloric and musical troops animated by Djiboutian artists.
محمد إبراهيم مسؤولين تكلوا دوين اسمه ملكا ويكند جيبوتي ما أنت صعب كل صعب
waxaanu nimid anaga oo waftina lagu soo diray oo ka socona koomiinka eeli lokaalka ka socona oo meeriga Djibouti ka socona si fiican bal xafladda uga soo qayb galnay munaasabadan aad caawa qurux badan tahay boqolkiiba boqol caawa noogu horeysa waxaba laga yaabaa in had iyo goor meel kaleba aan tegin oon ku soo noqnoqono
aad iyo aad baanu u faraxsannahay sinad guuraaga 41aad inaan ka soo qayb galno baan aad ugu faraxsannahay taasoon doonayno inaan dalkayaga iyo dadkayaga iyo xukuumadayadaba aan ku muujino garab joog aan ku muujino.
International news: the United Arab Emirates on Sunday announced a pause in the offensive it is backing against Houthi rebels in Yemen's port city of Hodeidah to give a chance to UN peace efforts. Explanations.
This comes after Griffith met the President Abdurrabbu Mansour Hadi, whose troops are battling the Houthi rebels for control of the Red Sea port city earlier this week. We welcome continuing efforts by UN Special Envoy Martin Griffith to achieve an unconditional Houthi withdrawal from Hodeidah city and port. UAE Minister of State of Foreign Affairs Anwar, we have paused our campaign to allow enough time for this option to be fully explored. We hope he will succeed.
In Syria, after agreements, 8 localities has been taken over by the regime. Awa Abdi has more to tell us.
Syrian rebels held the towns and village, accepted government rule on Saturday as insurgent lines collapsed in parts of the southwest under an intense bombardment that the United Nations says has forced 160,000 people to flee. The southwest was an early hotbed of the uprising against President Bashar al-Assad, and defeat there would leave the rebels with just one remaining stronghold, the area around the Idlib province bordering Turkey in the northwest. Rebels meet Russian negotiators on Saturday to seek peace terms of Dar'a province, where most of their southwest territory is located, but say this failed. Moscow is Assad's strongest ally, and its air power since 2050 has been crucial to his recapture of vast southwest of Syria. Local groups in many towns seized by the army in recent days had negotiated their own surrender deals independently of the main rebel operation rooms after heavy air raids.
And to wrap up this edition with tens of thousands of Americans protest against the separation of children from their immigrant parents. More with Awa Abdi.
Tens of thousands of people across the U.S. have taken to the street to protest against Donald Trump's zero-tolerance immigration policy. Crowds marched in cities from Washington, D.C. to Los Angeles in opposition to the separation from children from their parents off at the border with Mexico. More than 750 events across all over 50 states were planned by organizers under the slogan "Families Belong Together" and "Freedom for Immigrants." The common chain of many of the protests was shame. If it can happen to any child, it can happen to my child and your child and of our children, singer Alicia Keys told the main rally of about 30,000 people in Washington. As demonstrators marched from Lafayette Square to the White House, they bought the Trump Hotel with the signs reading "Resist" and shouted, "Donald has got to go."
With these images, we end this news edition. Thank you for joining us on RTD channel, and have a good night.